Okay, so I had this idea for quite a time now about sentience and directional time and evolution. And let me explain to you. This is just an idea. It's not a theory. I just didn't examine anything. I had some ideas and just put them all together without further examination because I'm too lazy to do that. I need to learn, research a lot, and figure out if I had to do this properly and examine all the things. But I'm too lazy for that. I don't have time. Maybe some of you have time and have knowledge and to do all these things to figure out if this is correct and what is right, and to you can improve on this concept if you like. So maybe this leads to somewhere. I don't know if other people did something like this, but so these are my ideas that I had for quite a time. Let me explain. So this is the 4D universe, four-dimensional universe, and the time for life flows in this direction. And we know this. And the universe started with the Big Bang, and this is a very low entropy situation, low entropy state. Low entropy means low probability state, and it had many connections. And because it was so low probability, rapidly with an explosion, it uh, deviated away from this very low probability state because it's so low probability that the change happened so quickly, uh, and it is very analogous, similar to an explosion. Basically, it's the same. Statistically, it's the same. So the connections started to uh, turn into disconnections. The universe lost connections and went into higher and higher entropy states. And life, so I'm talking about the direction of time as we observe, as life. And you might ask, well, why life is observing time in this direction? Well, that's because life is forming connections in this direction. Maybe the whole universe is losing connections in this direction, but life is forming connections in this direction. That's why we are observing time towards the right direction here. So, in a way, life is going against what is happening in the whole universe. So, but of course, overall, let's say if life formed one connection, for that it causes much more disconnections and it accelerates the disconnections of the whole universe. But that's not, as a side note, we can mention that. But what matters is that life has connections, is forming connections towards this direction. And we can say the formation of connections, it's lowering of entropy, and we represent entropy with S. So in this four-dimensional space-time, we can take a volume here, and we can measure the entropy here. What's the entropy? Not just in the space, but space and time. What's the entropy of this in this volume? And I came up with this kind of equation. Probably it is wrong, but I just had some ideas I need to put entropy. So let me explain this and how I came up with this. So sentience, I think it arises uh, by the formation of connections. And life is forming connections in this direction. That's why it is sentient in this direction. And so this is entropy of the observer. Let's say this is life here, and it became sentient and it is observing. What is it observing? It's observing another thing. So this is the entropy of the observed, let's say. So here there might be another one, this. So this might be S0, and there might be another volume box here, which life is observing, can be called this S prime. And this entropy here, so there is time difference. In relativity, there is the time slows down and freezes, etc. So I think this has something to do with it, that the time passes when we observe something less, more likely than us. Let's say if there is an entropy difference between the observed and the observer. And um, let me try to explain this more clearly. So you have the entropy of the observer, and you have the change in entropy, which is a formation of connections, which makes this thing sentient, aware of its surroundings. And this can observe other parts of the universe. And the other parts of the universe also has its own entropy, and it can be increasing, decreasing, whatever. And this change in entropy, so the sentience here and the sentience of the observed, I think the difference between them gives the sense of time. So that's how we become aware of time. That's just an idea, even not a theory, just how you might ask why you think this way. Well, because I'm like almost sure that lowering entropy, formation of connections, has to do something with intelligence and sentience, awareness, with life. Because where there is brains, where there is things that is forming, connections, which is lowering entropy, figuring things out, compressing information, that thing becomes acts like sentient things, and we show humans as the pinnacle, the highest form of this thing, but that's because we are doing this faster and faster. So like the difference, let's say a human here and 1 unit you go here, and this difference, the entropy difference for a human brain, is huge, squeezed in a very little space. So there is lots of connections in the human brain, and it is working so fast. So that's why I think it can form, this is high for human brain, and let's say a rock standing somewhere not moving, this is very low. And when you take the difference of these, maybe with some function, you take the difference of these, and it gives you why you observe time, why you see this rock, you observe this rock and feel, and the time passes. And when things, for example, this rack might start moving faster and faster, which I might argue that it uh, becomes it starts having lower and lower entropy because, okay, let me show that to you as well. So you have an object, a rack, for example, and you give 1 unit of energy in this direction towards right, to the right direction, and it might start to move. Okay, it starts to move, and then you give 2 units of energy. So this is also might be connected to quantum mechanics by units of the discrete energy, packets of energy. So you give 1 unit of energy, and this rack starts to move, and you give 2 units, the rack moves faster, and you give 3 units towards the right and faster, and 4 and faster. And this rack is very unlikely situation that all these 4 arrows will point toward the right direction, towards right. Some of you might argue, yes, all all the combinations of these arrows are equally unlikely. But that's not the case. What matters is the macro states. So the sum of the arrows. Okay, so there are many states where the sum of these arrows, if they are distributed randomly, will give 0 stationary rack, stationary mass. And that's the most likely state, that you will observe a rack standing, not moving, because that's the highest entropy for this rack. It's like coins. When you flip coins many times, let's say you flip a coin 100 times, you get half of the time heads, half of the time tails, and when you sum them up, it gives you 0. If the tails are -1 and if the heads are 1, or left or right, it gives you 0, most likely. Having all the heads or having all the tails is very unlikely, and that's similar situation here, that you are having all the arrows towards the right. That's why this situation is very unlikely, very low entropy situation. So there is some kind of intelligence going on here that is moving this rack. So when things move faster and faster, especially, I argue that they are the result of an intelligence. So this is like a low entropy situation. Of course, not only in space, but space and time as well. So let's think about this rack just moving towards this direction, and it keeps having these arrows towards the right at all times, let's say. And okay, so that's why I say this is like a low entropy situation. And why, so let me go back to this. So when we have this, that the rack is so low entropy, let's say it reached to an equal entropy as ourselves, our brain that is observing this rack. And when they become equal, this becomes 0, the right hand side, because this will be equal to this, and they cancel. So this delta t becomes 0, and the time freezes. So when you observe the rack, then you see that the time of the rack stops. It is just 0 units. It doesn't add up. It just stops. there is time stops. And when maybe when you approach the speed of light, maybe that is what's happening. And maybe the speed of light is what is limiting the formation of connections. And so but this is like I had to figure this out if I have to present you something with such things. But as I said, this is just a concept, an idea to be improved, to be developed, to be taught on. Many people can think and uh, figure out what works, what not, what is right, how to fix, how to improve. But I think overall this is going in the right direction, not in the sense of the time, but like in correct direction, because I really sense that sentience has to do, as I said, has to do something with entropy, and time, also direction of time, has to do something with entropy. So these, an observation has something to do with sentience, even in quantum mechanics too. So these maybe all are connected together that we just don't know yet, that we need to figure out, or maybe some people know that I don't know. I never heard such things. I just heard that yes, the entropy is related to direction of time, but no one mentioned about the observer or sentience forming, or just put uh, definitions and equations and such things. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. This was a different kind of video. It was boring for many of you. I know you don't have to watch. I will just write in the comment section. Just it is a boring video. Don't watch if you don't have free time.